What's up, everybody? Episode 3 of the Red Room Podcast. Today, I have a real cool friend and one of my loan officers. This is Bob Bachman from New American Funding. What's up, dude?
How you doing, Blake?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Ready to go. Let's knock it out of the park 2025, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. So, Bob, let's just jump into it. I think being relatively new to the industry on my end, now I've been in it for a couple of years, there's a lot of friends that are in my age group, the millennials, who are like looking to get into homes. And I know, especially just from being here, it's obviously one of the biggest purchases that people will make in their lifetime. So just kind of like jumping right into it. What do you say to those first-time home buyers? Like, what do they need to have all together in order to get the type of loan that they need for getting their home? Just starting from point A to Z, I guess.
Well, I guess the biggest thing that people think is you need to have 20% down to buy a house, and it's not true. So you can get into a house right now. You can get into a $1.2 million house with just 5% down.
Really?
$1.2 million loan, which means it's more like a $1.35 million purchase with just 5% down. So most of the kids today in the 25s to 30s, they're making good money.
Yeah.
And the biggest regret I had when I first graduated from college is I didn't think I could buy a house. I didn't even think about, back then houses were going for like $50,000.
Yeah.
And you only, for an FHA loan, you only needed 3.5%. 3.5% of $50,000 house is what, $1,500?
Mm-hmm.
But I was out spending that once a month on bars and everything else because I just didn't think I could afford it. And I think that's what the biggest issue is with kids today is they think that they need to put a big down payment down. But if they're making good money, they work for Apple, Google, Facebook, all the major tech companies, they probably can qualify now.
Do you see a lot of, is it mostly like married couples that are coming to you, or do you see like the lone stag or the lone stagette, if that's what it's called? Yeah. Do you see them approaching you too, or is it just mostly?
So to be honest with you, I mean, the single people that are buying houses are people probably in their 30s already.
Mm-hmm.
They've saved enough money down by themselves. But my niece and nephew, I helped them get into a house in Utah. The minute I told her that she could get into a conforming loan, which right now it's going to go up to $800,009. I think it's $800,000 and $809,000 with 3% down. $24,000 you buy a house. As soon as I told her that, she went hit up her mom, her dad, and they came up with the down payment, and we got them into a house 2 years ago.
Wow.
Right. And here's a couple that didn't have a lot of money. They're married, had a kid, but they're both making good money. And depending on where you live, maybe in Silicon Valley, now it's up to $800,000 loans. You can get into like a $850,000 condo with 3% down, or $1.3 million home at 5% down. Kids under 30 are typically married, right? Kids over 30 are buying them. They're waiting, holding off on getting married. They're able to buy the house, in the 30s.
Yeah. So are you seeing more with, I guess, the millennial age group? Are you seeing more of them purchasing condos versus single family homes? And if they are acquiring the single family home, are they like passed down from their parents or their grandparents, or is it, or what do you mostly see out there? Because I think this is like really important. It's just like nailing it on the head that it's possible to get into a house and to not be afraid, you know?
Yeah. So one thing I forgot too is, a lot of parents, they're not passing homes down to their kids. They're keeping those for when they pass.
Yeah.
But I'm getting a lot of co-borrowers. Parents can sign up with their kids if they make decent money and help them qualify for more loan, more house, but still with just the 5% down. So, and I missed your first question. What was it?
Oh,
I was going to start over.
No. It's good. It's good.
Lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. You're good. It was just it's again just like focusing on just I guess helping those new home buyers coming into the market, and just like what are things that they should be doing and what are things that they should not be doing, what's going to affect like their credit score coming to you with things, right? Like I know purchasing things or canceling credit cards or doing, these things.
So what people need to do to keep their credit keep it good, is not run it up. Don't run up a lot. I mean, a lot of people get the 0% transfer. Like if you transfer $10,000 over this card, you have zero interest for the next 12 months. Mm-hmm. If you do that, you want to maybe transfer, if you do it, transfer half of that, because if you transfer all your debt onto one card, it looks like you just got a brand new card and you just maxed it out. So that hurts your credit. I see a lot of people buying brand new Teslas, and then they add a $1,400 payment to their house or to their credit. What that does is that wipes out about $200,000 worth of purchasing power, if not more.
Wow.
So buying a car is like the last thing you want to do. The other thing that happens when you buy a car is, depending on where you buy a car, if you buy a car at Mercedes or maybe you buy a used car at a lot, and you go through through that car dealership for credit, they'll run your credit 5 or 6 times because they're looking for somebody who's going to loan you money and give them the biggest commission.
Yeah.
Right. So you go to one place and they'll run it maybe 4 or 5 times. You go to another place, they'll run it 2 or 3 more times. So the best thing you can do is get pre-qualified for a car at, like, say, a credit union. They'll run it one time, maybe a soft pull, which means that they don't pull all three bureaus. And once you get approved through that credit union, you can go buy a car anywhere, right? You don't need to have your credit run. So what I tell people to do is, if they have good credit, I tell them just keep doing what you're doing. Try to pay off your bills every month. If you can't pay off your bills every month, then at least make the minimum. Don't be late. If you're late, that hurts your credit. You could just missing it. A lot of people will go to like a Pottery Barn and they'll say, hey, if you sign up for a new credit card today, we'll give you 20% off your purchase. And so what happens is you get a new credit card, which hurts your credit. And then I've seen this happen a lot of times. Maybe they'll take a picture of your driver's license, and maybe that was an address from where you went to college. And so the first bill goes to that old address. You don't get it. And now you've got a 60 or 90 day late on your credit report.
Update your addresses, people. That's a very good point. That's
Best
a very
thing
good
is
point.
Do not open up credit.
Yeah. Gosh, I can't remember just being down in LA and I would get mail and everything. And it's like, who the heck is this guy? And I'd knock on the other doors. Like, does anybody live here? Oh, he lived here like 3 years ago. And you're like, you haven't updated your address. So that's important. That's a good note.
Another thing is, a lot of times, the first people that'll turn you over to a credit bureau is like your cable company or your like Verizon, AT&T card. If you say, I'm not going to pay this, they have no problem turning you over to collections, even if it's only like $30.
Wow.
And that'll kill your credit for a couple, 2-3 years, wipe it out 100 points. So you want to pay all your bills on time. Try not to open up more than, say, 3 or 4 credit cards or a car loan, and then just make on-time payments, and your credit score will go up. Always trying to keep, if your balance is, or if your credit limit is $100, $1,000, or $10,000, try and keep it about a third. So $100, $30, $1,000, $300, $10,000. Try and keep it on less than $3,000. But never max out a credit card. That just kills your credit.
Right on. And so, Bob, another topic that a lot of, people, they know about it, but I'd love to like kind of, again, stick it on the table and just, have you talk about it, is inflation and how that has affected the real estate market from that end of things. Like, for example, from my side of things, and just being a history buff, you go back 50 years and a guy could, have like a job serving at a restaurant, but he could also, pay off the car, pay off the mortgage and do all these things. But now you have to do like 5 or 6 of those jobs now. And so with that, how does that affect the loan value that you get?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of the people that wait on us at restaurants and things like that, they're being pushed out. They're being pushed down to Gilroy, pushed out to like Manteca, and they have horrendous commutes. If you're a professional and you've got a job here in Silicon Valley, for instance, you don't have to keep up with inflation in regards to your income, right? Homes are going up. We see this for the next 5 years. approximately 5% accumulative. So, 5% this year, say you got $1 million house, it's going to go up $50,000. So $1,050,000. Then that $1,050,000 house is going to go up another 5% next year. And it's going to keep doing that for the next 5 years. So, like I said, right now is the best time to get in a home. There's just not enough supply. I'm not seeing where the population now is such that back in like 2006, 7, 8, 9, they were building new homes at I think there was like 2 or 3 million more homes than were people able to buy them. All right, I'm sorry. There was $3 million. I think it was like 2 million homes more than people needed to buy them. Right. So that's when you got into people buying houses with no money down and renting them out and all that kind of stuff. Today, there is a huge shortage. And with the influx of people coming across the border, those people need to live somewhere. That's why rents have gone up. I think the average rent in Silicon Valley is somewhere around $3,000.
Yeah.
That's $36,000 you're paying a year for nothing. You're not getting any write-off. You're not getting any appreciation. So even though inflation has been going up, eggs 55% or whatever, income has been keeping up with that. If you're making $140,000, $150,000 a year, you can afford to buy a house if you don't have a $1,500 car payment. If you're a dual income making, $240,000 to $300,000, you should be buying a house because you have no write-off. You're in the 30% tax bracket. You're missing out on appreciation, and you're just wasting your money. On rent.
Yeah. It's, just having lived down in LA for about 15 years or so too. I was doing the whole serving tables and doing all that bit. And while it was a lot of fun, you start to look around and see, man, I'd really like to live in this particular area, but I can't afford it with that job. And so you would have to live somewhere else that maybe wasn't the best. And so, it's a lot of just kind of like, how do you get into that area? Well, you have to do X, Y, and Z to get in there.
So, So, I mean, all the areas around, say, Silicon Valley right now, there's just not many houses available. So even in the bad areas, people that have a lot of rentals, they're starting to get older and retire, and they want to get out of the rental business. So they're selling those homes. So a lot of well-to-do couples are moving into those areas and lifting up the whole area, making it better. So you're going to see even bad areas become good areas here in the next 5, 10 years, because you're going to have to make a lot of money to live there. And so you're going to be good, your kids at school, you're going to work with them. So there aren't really no bad areas today if you can get in now. That may not be where, like you said, where you want to stay. My first house was a condo downtown San Jose. I knew that eventually I would move somewhere I wanted to, but you got to get on the train before it leaves the station. Yeah.
Very, very fair point. I think, talking about just the shortage of homes, it has been interesting. Like, I have some family property up in Tahoe, and I hadn't been up there in quite a while. I went up there with the family this past summer, and driving up there, I remembered these fields of just there were these backcountry roads that were doing this, and now it's all homes. And so, they're nice homes, but it's like inland, you know what I mean? So it's just it's interesting to see how, after now being in this, how everything just kind of circulates around real estate and how really big this business is, to the point where it's like, a home the same size as the one by the water, is cheaper inland versus by the water now, which is appreciated and gone up, and crazy to think about, So let's hop into this. How did you get involved in all of this? Where'd you come from? What brought you to Silicon Valley? Why'd you pick Silicon Valley?
Okay. So I grew up in the Northwest. I was born in Portland, Oregon. My mom moved us to a small town called Centralia. It's like halfway between Portland and halfway to Seattle. So it's like, they call it Centralia, it's Central. And I went to junior college there. I went to the University of Washington. And before I went to college, a friend of mine and I drove down on our 18th birthday. We got all the way down to Santa Barbara and I'd never been outside the Northwest. I never knew what it was like to like have nice weather, you know. And so after that, after graduating from college, I didn't interview with anybody in Seattle, or I didn't interview with Boeing or anybody in Oregon or Washington.
Yeah.
I took a job in San Jose because I knew that's where everything was happening. This is before Google and Facebook. You know, we didn't have cell phones when I graduated, 1981. You know, so we all had the Rolodexes, or actually wrote people's names and numbers down, right?
Yeah.
And so my first job was with PG&E in their energy conservation department. From there, I went to work for an air conditioning company, and I was out selling a concept called energy efficiency. You know, before there were computers to monitor, you know, the temperature of the outside, inside, you know, control the atmosphere, turn off the lights. There were microcontrollers, energy management systems, they call them. And I did that I sold those for about 3 years. And then I wanted to sell semiconductors. So I got into a company called Marshall Industries. They've since been bought by, I think, Avnet, you know, a long time ago. I took that as far as I could when they created NAFTA and some of the other, you know, when we did relationships with China and Taiwan. You know, I was designing in chips, and the only way you could get paid is if they were manufactured here. The minute they went to Taiwan or China, you couldn't trace those chips, like Xilinx, which has now been bought by AMD. There's specific chips that you could, you know, register and everything to keep track of. But once they went offshore, you can get paid. So after like Y2K, you know, 2000, companies I've been calling on for 3, 4, 5, 6 years were literally going out of business. They were designing all these communications type cards that were supposed to make life better on the communication side, and there wasn't a market for it. And so around 2001, November 2001, I remember looking up in the Mercury News, and, you know, they did, again, there was no Yelp or anybody to check out people. I just looked up in the paper, and I found this guy, Jeff Crum, over American Family Funding over here in the Prune Yard, and I refinanced November 2001. And 6 months later, about June 2002, he called me up and said, "Hey, Bob, how you doing?" I'm going, "Yeah, good." He goes, "Hey, rates have come down. How'd you like to refinance again?" I'm like, "My friend, you just charged me like $6,000 in fees the last time we refinanced. I don't want to do that every time we refinance." He goes, No, I'll do it for free." So, you know, I thought, oh, okay. So I think I probably saved, I don't know, $300-400. My loan amount back then was like $350,000. So I'm talking to him, and I'm telling him, hey, you know, I called on the whole Bay Area, San Francisco, all the, you know, Morgan Hill, Lafayette, Danville, that whole area was my territory, and I had a team of people, and I had so many names over the years that I knew. I said, I want to bring these people that I know with me, but I don't know where to go. And he says, well, you should talk to my broker. And I didn't know anything about mortgage lending. I mean, I refinanced and bought houses, but, you know, they always came to my house. Everything was filled out with paper. And I really thought they were like bank tellers. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with bank tellers, but I go, I think they make, you know, maybe $50,000 a year. And I was making, you know, 150 to 180. He goes, my friend, I'm going to make $850,000 this year. That was June 2002. By September, I had my license, and I was knocking on the door, and that's where I started.
You know, it's kind of funny you bring that up. It's like that moment you seen Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh yeah.
Or he's like, "Show me your pay stub, and I'll quit my job right now." And it's like that whole scene right there. You literally had that moment.
That was it. So fortunately for me, back in 2002, it was just 30-year fixed rate mortgages. That's, you know, 15-year and 30-year fixed rate mortgage. That's all anybody was doing. But then, like everything else, rates started going up. I was going, oh my God, what do we do now? Well, then they came out with the ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, right? You had 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, 3-year. And so I sold those, you know. So back then, let's say a 30-year was at 6%, an ARM could be as low as 5 3/8, 5.5. So it was an easy deal for people to convert to. You know, people buying houses to save money because they all figured they could refinance down the road anyway. Rates kept still going up. Then they came out with, what was it? They're illegal now. It was the pickup plan for negative amortization loans. You had 4 payment options. You had the minimum payment, which was below the actual interest only payment. You had the interest only, principal and interest payment at 30 years, principal and interest payment at 15. But of course, nobody paid more than just the minimum payment. And that's what got everybody in trouble.
Yeah.
So we sold those. And then when those started getting kind of bad, they came out with actually a ARM-based negative AM loan. So it'd be fixed for the first 5 or 7 years, but it'd be going negative each year. But you would just be making that, the minimum payment was a little bit higher, more like the interest-only payment. And then the market just went to hell. And now we're back to, those are outlawed. So now it's mainly 30-year fixed rate, 15-year fixed rate. They do still have ARMs, but because of the 10-year 10-year bond being at almost 4.6% today, rates are now about 7% on 30-year fix. The ARM pricing is not a big enough difference to take an ARM today. Once rates start coming down, once the Fed gets those Fed fund rates down below 3 again, then you'll see ARM pricing come back. Right now, our best rates are 30-year fixed rate.
So, question. So when you say they come up with these loans, and who's they? Is that the Fed, or who comes up with the different type of loans? And then do the banks say, okay, we'll use that one and that one, they get a pick, and can they come up with their own? And like, how does that all work?
Okay, so the Fed fund rate is the rate that banks charge each other to loan them money overnight. Like, so for instance, Silicon Valley Bank, when it was starting to go down, when there was a rush on the bank for money, they were borrowing from, I think, Chase, borrowing money at the Fed fund rate. That's the overnight rate. It has nothing really to do with rates that you and I pay on a mortgage. That is, it's like supply and demand base. It's like the stock market. So right now, the demand for a bond in an inflationary time is not very attractive, as opposed to buying stocks that are running, between, right now, 10 to 25% return on. So even though the Fed fund rate might be at 5 3/8, rates are going to be, there's usually a spread between that. Typically it's 1.5 or maybe 2 points difference. So, it's really, in order for people to buy mortgage-backed securities, there's got to be a reason why they want to buy it. And that is when they see inflation coming down, because it's a fixed asset. You buy a fixed asset like a house, it's going to continue to go up over time like gold. But a bond, if it's fixed, and let's say it's fixed at whatever rate it's at, and now there's inflation that eats away at the principal of that. I mean, it makes it worth less money, right?
Gotcha.
Why would I buy something at 4% when I can buy something else tomorrow at 5%? Because that's what's being offered out there. So when rates start coming down, when these bond prices start coming down, when people think that inflation is behind us, then you'll start seeing a lot more aggressive rates.
Got you. So in terms of, so you have like a 30-year, right? And then you have like a balloon loan, right? Like who comes up with those? There's
no balloon loans.
But you know what I mean?
So the market comes up. We're regulated now, so they're coming out with more loan options now, because we feel like, we know that the housing industry, we see a lot of, I think the average consumer nationwide has a minimum of 100,000 or more equity in their houses. Around here, I think it's like $300,000 or $400,000 worth of equity. So they're not really worried about losing their money if home prices go down, because they'll just foreclose. But banks don't really want to foreclose. If they start foreclosing on houses, there's a domino effect, and Fed comes in, and there's nobody wants to foreclose. So they're coming out with a little bit more flexible loans now, because they know the value. If you put enough money down, and we check your, we have to approve you for a loan. We have to prove to the government, if anything was to go bad, that we checked out your income, verified your assets. So there's no reason why you should not be able to make your house payment unless you lose your job. And if you lose your job, there's enough equity in your house that you should be able to sell it and pay off all your debt. So what happens is the market dictates what loans are available. So for instance, there's a new loan called a DSCR loan. And it's all based on, this is for investment properties, and it's all based just on the property. So we take it's been called the debt service ratio. And basically we take the rent that you can get and you divide that by the principal, interest, tax, and insurance, the cost on a monthly basis. And if that ratio is, 75% or above, we'll give you a loan just based on that. We don't need any other documentation other than we want to see your assets. We want to pull your credit. We want to make sure that you have experience, with investment properties, and we'll loan you money based on that ratio, the debt service coverage ratio of that home.
Gotcha. So I read somewhere that like fourplexes and investment properties are being built more so than single family homes. I think like maybe a few months back was like the first time in like American history like that was happening. So in terms of like a fourplex and someone looking to get into that and living in there for 2 years and doing that whole bit, do you consider or take into account the rent from like the other 3 units going back to pay the mortgage, or how does that all?
Yeah. So I helped a gentleman buy a 30 something buy a fourplex up in Oakland, and we actually did FHA loan. FHA, the loan limits for a fourplex, and I can't think off the top of my head, but so for a single family, the maximum loan amount is around $1 million to $1.2 million and some change. If you buy a fourplex, it's a higher loan amount. So he was able to buy this house FHA. I can't remember what it's 3.5%, 5% down, but we use 75% of the rents of the other 3 units as income plus his income to qualify. Wow. So if you're buying a fourplex, and especially if you've got experience, then you're probably going to have to put down a minimum of like 20 to 25%, right? Unless it's owner occupied. It's owner occupied, you put less down. I mean, the reason why owner occupied down payments are less is you kind of look at rental car. You go rent a car. Have you ever gone to get the car washed and detailed out before you ride it back? Mm-hmm. No, right? Because renters don't take the same care of their house as somebody who lives in the house.
Yeah.
So if you live there, you get away with less down because we know you're going to take care of it. It's an investment property. You're looking at probably a minimum 25% down, but we will use the rents to help for that house.
Gotcha. And then the FHA, that's considered the first time home buyers.
That's really for people that maybe their credit's not so good.
Yeah.
Maybe
like could someone literally go into that said fourplex, do an FHA, put 2.5%, 3.5% down, 3.5% down, live in there for 2 years, and then get out of there, rent that fourth, and then go and hop into another one and do another FHA?
Again, I don't do a lot of FHA loans because it's Silicon Valley, but I believe that you only have one owner occupied FHA loan at a time.
Gotcha.
So you went out to buy another one. You just converted this one to all investment. You try and go buy another one FHA. Probably not going to happen. But,
gotcha.
But by then, after 2 years, you probably have enough equity to go out and get a conventional loan, turn it into get a refinance it to a conventional loan. Then you could go buy another house FHA.
Gotcha.
The thing with FHA is it's a little bit more expensive. You have to pay 1.75% of the loan amount to FHA to insure that loan. Mm-hmm. Plus, you always have mortgage insurance pretty much for the life of the loan.
Yeah.
So eventually, you always want to kind of refinance out of FHA. That is a strategy if you want to do that. You can certainly start out there. I'm sure some people have done that.
Right on. Another question for you. So you see a lot of these like TV shows like the Property Brothers and, Tarek and Heather and Christina, and they're going in and they're flipping these homes. How does that work for, let's say, someone that wants to get in that? Are there loans for flipping? How do people get into that? Or is it all just capital up front that they got to get and they go to investors? Or
typically, okay, so there are hard money lenders out there that if you put in a certain amount of your money down, I mean, it's different they look at the risk, right? So hard money lenders will typically lend you, I think, up to 65% of that house. There are some we have some broker options now. They'll actually, they'll loan you the 65% down. You got to put 35% down of your own money. If you have experience flipping houses, they'll look at what you're going to do and what the future value of that home is going to look like, and they'll loan you a percentage of that. So there's quite a few different options now for people who want to flip houses, but a lot of it's based on experience. So most people start out with borrowing money from family or borrowing money from hard money lenders and putting a chunk of their own money in, and then based on the success of the houses that they flip, they can get better and better loan options.
And the rate's higher too, right?
The rate's higher and there's a higher cost. So let's say it's let's keep it a simple $1 million loan or $1 million purchase. They'll loan you $650,000. You got to put in $350,000 of your own money, and then any money you need to fix the house, you're going to have to do that yourself, or again borrow family or friends. But lost my train of thought again. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Flipping homes.
Well, I know I got that. But what was the question you said?
Oh, just the different like loans that you could use and like, to go and complete the project. Like you need I'm assuming because the rate, like that percentage is so high.
Yeah,
the rate. Yeah.
So the rate right now for hard money loans is typically between 10 and 12%. And they charge you 2%, typically maybe 3% of the loan amount. So if it's $1 million loan, they're going to charge you $20,000 or $30,000 if it's 3%. And the rate's going to be between 10 and 12%. So as opposed to investment property loans now, if you put down 35% on an investment home, you can get a rate that's 6s.
Yeah.
Right. So
you want to get that project done pretty
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't start eating you up.
Typically those loans only last 90 days, 120 days, maybe max would be like 12 months, but typically they want to get their money back. So
yeah. That's the thing too. It's like, you have to make sure that you have your whole entire crew put together and just make sure that it's like, oiled and ready to
go. Yeah. Typically, it's hard to find those houses now because there's so many people doing that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's hard you really got to find a house that is like a tear down. A lot of people will come in and they'll either, if it's a big lot, they'll divide the lot, build a house, sell that, use that money to buy the next house, sell that, or they'll tear it down and double the size, 2 stories. Maybe they'll build an ADU in the back. Those kinds of things. So there's pretty much, you can get a loan from anybody right now. We even have stated income for people that self-employed people that write everything off their taxes. Doesn't look like they've made any money. So we'll give them a loan based on maybe 12 months of bank statement deposits. We'll do, for people who have a lot of money in stocks, we'll do what's called asset depletion, or money. There's a lot of different loans you can get now. They're not as bad as they were back in 2006, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
We're documenting a lot more information. You got to put a lot more money down in some cases. But there's loans out there that you get just based on your bank statements. If you have, last year was a bad year, this year was a good year, we have loans where you just do 1-year tax returns, right? So, if you got a lot of equity in one house, in your house, and you don't have any money to put down on the new house, well, you take a bridge loan or a line of credit out and use that money to buy another house, owner occupied, and we won't count any of that debt. We'll disqualify you on the new house. So there's so many different ways to buy a house today.
Yeah. Do you ever work with like 1031 exchanges at all? All the time? So run me through, like explain that from like, you're explaining it to like a 5th grader, because it helps out with all the investment properties and slowly kind of doing that, right?
So like in the state of California on primary residences, currently for a single person, you get a $250,000 exemption if you sell your house. Basically, say you buy a house for $500,000, now it's worth $1 million, and the government will give you first $250,000 untaxed of that profit. If you're married, we'll give you up to $500,000 profit. You don't get taxed on anything. But if you've got a $3 million house and you bought it for $500,000, you get that $500,000 exemption. As a married couple, so that's $1 million. You're going to pay taxes on the existing $2 million, which is a lot. At 35% capital gains, you're going to write a big check to the government. So a lot of times what will happen is people will move out of the house, maybe either buy another house, move in family, or maybe rent, and they'll rent their house for 2 years. It's going to be 2 years. You rent it out. then you can sell that house and you can roll all the profit into an equal or more expensive home somewhere else or multiple homes. You just, as long as you let's say the profit's $1 million, as long as you buy a house equal or greater value, you can roll that in and not pay any taxes on that money. It's a 1031 exchange. So they'll turn either an owner occupied house into a rental property for 2 years. Then they can sell it, buy another rental property of equal or greater cost. So that's what the 1031 exchange is for. So I mean, there's the rules. You have to follow the rules. You have to identify properties within a certain amount of time, and then once you sell your house, you've got a certain amount of time to buy the new house. So I mean, there are some time constraints. Save a lot of money. You can buy multiple houses as long as you take all that money and reinvest it in investment properties. It's not taxed until you sell it down the road.
Interesting. It's good to know. Is there a cap on like the price of the next property that you can get rolling it into?
You just have to buy a house of equal or greater value.
Equal or greater value.
Yeah, it could be multiple houses. As long as they're all, you have to buy them all in a certain time frame.
Yeah.
As long as you roll all the profits. So I mean, you can sell a $1 million house and buy $300,000 houses, say. I mean, for example, as long as you don't walk away with any money. Now, the cool thing about that is once you buy those houses as investment properties, 1031 exchanges, you can turn around and do a cash out, refi on every one of those houses and buy more houses.
This is the man. If you need help, this is the guy you got to go to. Bob, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for coming.
Hey,
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me. Sorry.
This guy's super cool, super fun. And yeah, if you need any help with getting a loan and you want to get those keys and get into your first home, or you've been in the game for a minute, you just want to get another home,
do it now.
Recommend this guy. Yeah. He's super cool. You helped me out with, my folks and everything, and can't thank you enough. And yeah, just a good guy at heart, Bob.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cool. All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Woo!